The smoke hung thick in the cantina like a gray blanket. Commander Zixala lifted her drink with one of her 4 arms while the other 3 rested on the worn metal table. Her chitinous armor caught the dim light from the overhead lamps. Around her, the other members of her squad talked loudly about their latest victory. "Easy money," said Sergeant Krell, his scaled face split in a wide grin. "Those human traitors didn't even fight back when we boarded their ship." Lieutenant Vash nodded, her tentacles curling with satisfaction. Humans always surrender fast. They know they cannot win against real warriors. Zixala said nothing. She just stared into her drink, watching the blue liquid swirl around the glass. Her squad had raided 3 human cargo ships this month. Each time, the humans had given up without a fight. They handed over their goods and begged for mercy like all the other weak species in this part of space. But something bothered her. Something she could not forget. The cantina was full of aliens from dozens of different worlds. Drukari mercenaries with their thick gray skin sat at one corner. A group of insectoid Nexari traders clicked and buzzed at another table. Even a few Zephyrian soldiers were there, their tall blue forms standing out among the crowd. A thruckery at the bar was getting louder with each drink. His name was Gorduk, and everyone knew he was trouble. He had scars across his face and arms that told stories of many fights. "I have killed Verlin's Nexari, even Zephyrians," Gorduk boasted, waving his drink around. "But humans? They are the easiest prey of all. Soft, weak, pathetic creatures. I could take down a whole ship of them with my bare hands." Several aliens laughed and agreed. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as one of the weakest species. They had no natural armor, no claws, no poison, no special abilities. They were just pink, hairless creatures that died easily. But in the darkest corner of the cantina, something stirred. An old Nexari trader sat alone at a small table. His insect-like body was hunched over, and his 4 eyes glowed softly in the shadows. He had been quiet all evening, just listening to the conversations around him. Now, he spoke. His voice was barely a whisper, but somehow it carried across the entire room. Marcus Chun. The name hit the cantina like a physical blow. Every conversation stopped. Every alien turned to look at the old Nexari. Even the music from the speakers seemed to fade away. Gordek's drink froze halfway to his mouth. His gray face had gone pale. "What? What did you say?" The old Nexari's eyes focused on the Thrakari warrior. "You want to fight humans? You think they are weak? Then go find Marcus Chun." Zixala felt her secondary heart skip a beat. That name. She knew that name. Her hands started to shake, and she quickly put down her drink. Gorduk tried to laugh, but the sound came out wrong. "One human? You expect me to fear one single human?" The old trader stood up slowly. His movements were careful, like someone who had lived through too many wars. "I was at Kepler Station," he said quietly. "I saw what he did there. We all saw." A Zephyrian soldier at another table suddenly stood up and walked toward the exit. Then another alien left. Then another. Soon, half the cantina was empty. Zixala watched them go and felt cold fear creep up her spine. She remembered Kepler Station, too. She had been there 3 years ago. She had seen things that still gave her nightmares. "Tell them," someone whispered from across the room. "Tell them about the human who would not die." The old Nexari looked around the cantina at the remaining aliens. His voice was soft but clear. "The Confederacy sent us to capture a small human research ship. Just 20 crew members. It should have been simple. We had 3 warships and over 200 soldiers." Gorduk was no longer smiling. And Marcus Chun killed 90 of them before we retreated. The cantina was dead silent now. Even the bartender had stopped moving. "Impossible," Gorduk said, but his voice was weak. "No single being could. He was just a security officer, the old Mexari continued. Not even a real soldier. Just a human who was supposed to protect the research team. But when we boarded their ship, he became something else. Zixala closed her eyes and tried not to remember. But the images came anyway. The narrow corridors of the research ship. The bodies of her fellow soldiers scattered everywhere. And through it all, one human who just kept fighting. He lost an arm in the first hour, the trader said. We thought that would stop him. But he kept going. He rigged explosives in the air vents. He turned the artificial gravity against us. He used broken pieces of the ship as weapons. Lieutenant Vash leaned forward. But surely after a few hours. 18 hours, the old Nexari said. 18 hours of non-stop fighting. He should have bled to death 10 times over. He should have collapsed from exhaustion. He should have given up. But humans do not give up. Gordic set down his drink with a shaking hand. Where is he now? The trader's 4 eyes gleamed in the darkness. Still out there. Still fighting. The crime syndicate has put a bounty on him worth more money than most planets make in a year. But no one collects it. No one even tries anymore. Zixala suddenly felt sick. She had heard rumors over the past few months. Ships found drifting empty in space. Slaver bases that went dark overnight. Entire criminal organizations that just disappeared. They say he hunts alone now, the old Nexari whispered. Looking for slavers and pirates. They say he has become something that nightmares fear. The cantina was almost empty now. Only a few aliens remained, and they all looked ready to run. Gordic stood up on unsteady legs. I think I need some air. As the Fracari warrior stumbled toward the exit, the old Nexari called after him. If you ever see a lone human in a simple gray uniform, with scars on his face and ice in his eyes, run. Zixala waited until Gordak was gone, then approached the old trader's table. You were really there? That Kepler station? The Nexari nodded slowly. I commanded the 3rd Assault Team. Or what was left of it. I was there too, Zixala admitted quietly. I saw him fighting in the reactor room. He was already bleeding from dozens of wounds. But he would not stop. The trader's eyes grew distant. That is when I learned the truth about humans. They are not like us. We fight to win, or to survive, or to gain something. But humans? Sometimes they fight for reasons that make no sense. And when they do, they become unstoppable. Zixala nodded and walked back to her table. Her squad was gone now, probably scared away by the story. She sat alone and thought about Marcus Chun. Somewhere out in the darkness of space, he was still out there. Still fighting. Still hunting. And despite everything she had learned about human weakness, Commander Zixala found herself hoping she would never meet him again. 3 years earlier, Commander Zixala stood on the bridge of the warship Talon's Edge and watched a small human research vessel floating helplessly in space. The ship was called the New Hope, and it was nothing special. Just a simple exploration vessel with basic shields and no weapons. Target locked, reported her weapons officer. Shall I disable their engines? No need, said Admiral Korath, a massive Zephyrian with blue skin and golden eyes. They have already surrendered. Look. The human ship was broadcasting a surrender signal. White flags of peace appeared on their screens. It was standard procedure. Most alien ships gave up when they saw 3 Confederacy warships bearing down on them. 20 crew members, said the scanner operator. Mostly scientists and researchers. Only 2 security personnel. Admiral Korath smiled with satisfaction. Easy cargo. We board the ship, take their research data, and sell them as slaves. The humans always pay good money to get their people back. Zixala felt a small twinge of doubt, but she pushed it away. Orders were orders. The Confederacy needed resources, and humans were an easy target. They had no real military power, and their government always negotiated for prisoners. "Prepare boarding teams," Admiral Korath commanded. "I want this done quickly and cleanly." Zixala led the first boarding team. Behind her came 40 elite soldiers from different species. Thrakari warriors with thick armor, Zephyrian shock troops with energy weapons, even some Nexari specialists with poison claws. They were the best fighters the Confederacy could offer. The airlock on the human ship opened easily. There was no resistance. Zixala and her team moved through the corridors like they had done hundreds of times before. It should have been simple. The first sign that something was wrong came when they reached the main hallway. A human male stood there waiting for them. He was not tall, maybe average height for his species. He wore a simple gray security uniform and carried a basic energy pistol. But his eyes. Zixala would never forget his eyes. They were dark brown and completely calm. No fear, no anger. Just a quiet determination that made her feel cold. "I am Security Officer Marcus Chun," he said in perfect galactic standard. "You need to leave this ship now." Several of the soldiers laughed. Sergeant Vorak, a huge Thrakari warrior, stepped forward. "Human, you are outnumbered 40 to 1. Surrender now, and we will not hurt you." Marcus Chun tilted his head slightly. "I cannot do that. These people are under my protection." "Your protection?" Vorak laughed louder. "You are one small human with a basic weapon. We are elite Confederacy soldiers. Step aside or die." Marcus Chen did not step aside. What happened next changed everything. Zixala thought she knew about humans. Chun moved faster than should have been possible for his species. His first shot hit Vorak right in the chest, dropping the massive Thrakari instantly. His second shot took out the soldier behind him. By the time the rest of the team reacted, 3 more aliens were down. But it was not just his speed or accuracy that shocked them. It was his complete lack of fear. While her soldiers scrambled for cover, Chun advanced down the hallway like he was taking a walk. "Spread out," Zixala ordered. "Surround him." The soldiers tried to follow orders, but the corridors of the ship were narrow. Chun used this to his advantage. He ducked into side passages and struck from unexpected angles. He threw grenades around corners and shot through walls. When Private Calyx tried to flank him, Chun somehow anticipated the move. He rigged a piece of the ship's machinery to explode just as the Nexari soldier rounded the corner. When Corporal Vex charged him directly, Chun used the alien's own momentum to throw him into a wall with bone-breaking force. After 20 minutes of fighting, half of Zixala's team was down. The other half was pinned behind whatever cover they could find. "He's just one human." Admiral Korath's voice crackled over the communication system. "How are you not finished yet?" Zixala ducked as another energy blast scorched the wall above her head. "Sir, he's not fighting like any human we have encountered before." "Then send more teams." The second boarding team arrived 15 minutes later. 30 fresh soldiers joined the fight. Chung had taken a hit by then. A blast from an energy rifle had burned through his left arm. Zixala could see the injury clearly. It was severe. The human should have been in shock from blood loss. Instead, he seemed to become more dangerous. Chun began using the ship's own systems against him. He rerouted power to create electrical traps in the corridors. He vented atmosphere from certain sections to force the soldiers into areas where he could ambush them. He even managed to turn off the artificial gravity in one section, causing 6 soldiers to float helplessly while he picked them off. "This is impossible," shouted Lieutenant Grix, a Zephyrian officer. "He should be dead by now." But Marcus Chun was not dead. Hour after hour, he continued fighting. He lost more blood. He took more hits. A piece of shrapnel cut across his face. A grenade blast threw him against the wall so hard that several of his ribs cracked. Still, he fought. By the 6th hour, Admiral Korath had sent the 3rd boarding team. By the 10th hour, parts of the 4th team joined the battle. Nearly 200 elite soldiers were now fighting one human security officer on a research ship. The battle became a nightmare. Chun knew every inch of his ship. He crawled through maintenance shafts that were too small for most aliens. He used emergency systems and backup generators to power improvised weapons. When his energy pistol ran out of charge, he started using pieces of broken equipment as clubs and spears. Zixala found herself trapped in the engine room with 12 other survivors from her original team. Outside, they could hear Chun moving around. Sometimes he would appear at one entrance, fire a few shots, and disappear before anyone could react. Other times, he would throw objects to make noise and attack from a completely different direction. "He is playing with us," whispered Corporal Nex, a Nexari soldier whose green carapace was cracked and bleeding. "No," said Zixala quietly. "He is protecting them." Through the small windows in the engine room, she could see the human research team. They were huddled together in the ship's main laboratory, scared but unharmed. Chun had not let a single alien soldier get past him. On the 18th hour of fighting, Admiral Korath's voice came over the communication system again. But this time, he sounded different. Tired. Maybe even scared. "All teams, withdraw to the ships immediately." "Sir?" Zixala could not believe what she was hearing. "You heard me, Commander. We are leaving. Now." As they retreated through the airlocks, Zixala caught one last glimpse of Marcus Chun. He stood in the corridor where it all began, covered in blood and burns and cuts. His uniform was torn. His face was pale from blood loss, but his dark brown eyes were still calm, still determined. He watched them go without saying a word. Later, safe on her own ship, Zixala learned the numbers. 93 Confederacy soldiers were dead or too injured to fight. One human had held off the entire assault by himself, but the numbers were not what stayed with her. It was the look in Marcus Chun's eyes, the complete certainty that he would die before he let anything happen to the people he was protecting. That was when Zixala realized that humans were not weak at all. They were something much more dangerous than that. They were unpredictable. 2 days after the Cantina incident, Commander Zixala stood in Admiral Korath's office aboard the fleet command ship. The same blue-skinned Zephyrian who had ordered the retreat at Kepler Station was now pacing behind, his desk like a caged animal. "You heard the name spoken," Admiral Korath said without looking at her. "Marcus Chun, in a public cantina." "Yes, sir." An old Negazari trader mentioned him to quiet a boastful Thrakari. And what was the reaction? Zixala remembered the fear that had filled the room. "Half the cantina emptied within minutes, sir." Admiral Korath stopped pacing and turned to face her. His golden eyes were troubled. "That is the 3rd time this week someone has spoken his name in this sector. Do you know what that means?" "Sir, it means he is here, in our space. And he is working." The Admiral activated a holographic display above his desk. Star charts appeared, showing the local sector with its trade routes and planetary systems. Red markers dotted the map like a disease. 14 slaver operations have gone dark in the past month, Admiral Korath said, pointing to the markers. Not destroyed, not robbed, simply gone. Ships found floating empty. Bases abandoned overnight. Personnel vanished without a trace. Zixala studied the pattern. The attacks were not random. They formed a clear path through space, moving steadily toward the sector's main slave trading hub. "He is hunting them," she said quietly. "Yes, but not like a normal hunter. Look at this." The Admiral changed the display to show financial data. The Galactic Syndicate lost 3 ships and 2 processing stations in 1 week. But their credits were not stolen. Their cargo was simply freed. Freed? Released. Slaves set loose with enough supplies and fuel to reach safe systems. The Syndicate's property was not taken for profit. It was eliminated for principle. It was eliminated for principle. The Admiral sat down heavily in his chair. The crime syndicate has placed the largest bounty in galactic history on his head. 50 million credits. Do you know how many hunters have tried to claim it? Zixala shook her head. 47 crews in the past 6 months. Want to know how many succeeded? None? Worse. 23 crews never reported back at all. The other 24 returned. Changed. Some had crew members missing. Others came back speaking in whispers about shadows that fought like demons. 3 entire crews asked to be confined in mental health facilities. The Admiral pulled up another file. This is from Captain Vrex, one of the best bounty hunters in the sector. He tracked Chun for 2 weeks before giving up. A rough voice filled the room from the audio recording. He does not fight like a warrior. He does not think like a criminal. He moves through space like a force of nature. We would attack his ship, and he would be gone. We would set traps, and somehow we would be the ones caught. After my gunner disappeared, and my pilot started having nightmares, I decided the money was not worth our lives. Zixala felt a familiar chill. Why are you telling me this, sir? Admiral Korath's expression was grim. Because Command believes that your experience at Kepler Station gives you insight into his methods. They want you to track him down, to capture him, to eliminate him. The crime syndicate is offering the Confederacy exclusive mining rights to the Zarian asteroid belt if we can stop Marcus Chun permanently. Zixala stared at the star chart. Zarian was one of the richest mineral deposits in known space. The mining rights would fund the Confederacy fleet for decades. What are my orders? Find him. Study him. Learn how he operates. Then destroy him. The Admiral paused. But be careful, Commander. This human is not like the ones who surrendered to you before. This one has become something else entirely. 3 hours later, Zixala was aboard her ship, the Void's Edge, studying intelligence reports about Marcus Chun's recent activities. Her crew worked quietly around her, preparing for departure. They had heard the rumors too, and none of them looked happy about this mission. Commander, called Lieutenant Vash from the communication station. I have the latest reports from the affected systems. Show me. The display lit up with incident reports from across the sector. Zixala read them one by one, looking for patterns. The first attack had been simple. A small slave transport carrying kidnapped human colonists had been intercepted between star systems. The slavers were found unconscious, tied up, and floating in escape pods with a recorded message. These people are going home. Choose a different career. But the attacks had become more sophisticated over time. Chun was not just freeing slaves anymore. He was destroying the entire network that supported the slave trade. Look at this, said Sergeant Krell, pointing to one report. The Bloodclaw Station. It was the main hub for slave processing in the Outer Rim. 3,000 criminals worked there. And? Empty. All of them gone. But here's the strange part. No signs of violence. No bodies. No damage to the station. Just empty. Zixala frowned. How do you make 3,000 criminals disappear without a fight? I have been wondering the same thing, said Lieutenant Vash. But look at the security footage from the station's perimeter. The display showed grainy images of space around Bloodclaw Station. For hours, nothing happened. Then, a small ship appeared. Just one ship. It docked with the station for exactly 47 minutes. When it left, the station went silent. 47 minutes, Krell said in amazement. One human, one ship, 47 minutes. And 3,000 of the sector's most dangerous criminals just left. Maybe he had a bomb, suggested Vash. Threatened to blow up the station. No, said Zixala quietly. It does not work that way. He would not risk the slaves that were being held there. She called up more files. Each attack showed the same pattern. Chen would arrive alone in his small, unremarkable ship. He would dock or land or somehow get aboard the target. Then the slavers would disappear, and the slaves would be freed. But the strangest part was what happened afterward. Chen was not content to just hit individual targets. He was destroying the economic foundation of the slave trade itself. He hacked into the syndicate's financial networks, Vash reported. Transferred billions of credits from criminal accounts to refugee assistance programs. But he did not take any for himself. He also sent detailed intelligence reports to law enforcement in 12 different systems, added Krell. Complete files on slaver operations, including names, locations, and evidence of their crimes. Half of those operations were shut down by local authorities within days. Zixala leaned back in her chair. This was not random violence. It was warfare conducted with surgical precision. Chen was not just fighting individual slavers. He was systematically destroying their entire industry. Commander, called the navigation officer. We have a lead on his location. Show me. 3 systems away. The Nexer system has a large slave processing facility on the 4th planet. Intelligence suggests it might be his next target. Zixala studied the star charts. If Chum followed his usual pattern, he would hit Nexer within the next few days. Set course for Nexer 4, she ordered. But keep us at maximum sensor range. I want to observe him first. Should we alert the facility? Asked Vash. No. If we warn them, Chun will know we are watching. I want to see how he really operates. As her ship jumped to hyperspace, Zixala found herself thinking about the old Nexari trader's words in the cantina. The human who would not die. She wondered if Marcus Chen had died at Kepler Station after all. Maybe what was out there now was something different. Something that had once been human but had become something else through endless fighting. She hoped she was wrong. But as they traveled through the darkness between stars, heading toward their confrontation with the most feared human in the galaxy, Commander Zixala could not shake the feeling that she was about to discover something terrible about what humans could become when they decided to fight for something they believed in. In 3 days, she would learn that her fears were completely justified. Commander Zixala found him in the last place she expected. The derelict Space Hulk had been drifting in the Nexer system for 20 years. It was the remains of an old cargo ship, broken and forgotten. Most spacers avoided it. There was nothing valuable left inside, and the radiation from its damaged reactor made it dangerous to board. But her sensors had detected a small ship docked to its hull. Marcus Chun's ship. Stay here, she told her crew as she prepared to board alone. If I do not return in 1 hour, jump away and report to command. Commander, Lieutenant Vash said nervously, perhaps we should go with you. He killed 90 soldiers at Kepler Station. That was a battle. This is something else. Zixala checked her sidearm and sealed her environment suit. I need to understand what he is before we try to stop him. The airlock on the Hulk still worked, though barely. Zixala made her way through dark corridors filled with floating debris. Emergency lights flickered occasionally, casting strange shadows on the walls. The radiation counter on her suit clicked steadily. She followed the signs of recent passage, bent metal where someone had forced doors open, footprints in the dust that had gathered over decades. The trail led deeper into the ship, toward what had once been the engineering section. Zixala turned a corner and stopped. Marcus Chun sat cross-legged on the floor in front of a small portable workbench. tools were spread out around him in neat rows. He was cleaning a basic energy rifle with the careful attention of someone who had performed this task thousands of times. He looked up when she entered. Those same dark brown eyes from Kepler Station, just as calm as she remembered. 3 years had aged him. His hair was shorter now, with gray streaks at the temples. New scars marked his face and hands, but his movements were still precise and controlled. "Commander Zixawa," he said quietly, "you are early. I was not expecting you for another 6 hours." She kept her hand near her weapon, but did not draw it. "How did you know I was coming?" "You have been following the pattern of my attacks. Nexer 4 has the largest slave facility in this system. It was logical that you would assume I would strike them next." Chun set down his cleaning cloth and looked at her directly. "But I'm not going to Nexer 4. Then why are you here?" Chun gestured around the dark interior of the Hulk. This ship belonged to the Vax Transport Company. They were one of the first major slave trading operations in this sector, 20 years ago. They processed thousands of people through their facilities before local authorities shut them down. Zixal looked around the abandoned corridors. "They are gone. This place is dead. Their main operation was shut down, yes. But 3 of their senior executives escaped and started new companies. Different names, different methods, but the same business." Chun stood up and walked to a wall display that somehow still functioned. Names and faces appeared on the screen. Torvin Industries, Stellar Mining Consortium, Nexer Development Group. I have heard of those companies. They are legitimate businesses. They use legitimate businesses to hide their real operations. Torvin Industries mines asteroids, but they also kidnap miners from other companies and sell them as slaves. Stellar Mining provides equipment to colonies, but they also provide armed teams to capture colonists. Nexer Development builds stations, but they also build secret holding facilities. Zixala studied the display. The connections Chun had mapped were complex but clear. 3 supposedly legal companies were all owned by the same people who had run Vax Transport. "How did you discover this?" "I spent 8 months tracking financial records, shipping manifests, and personnel files." Chun touched the screen, and new information appeared. They learned from their mistakes. Instead of running one large operation that could be shut down, they created dozens of smaller ones. More profit, less risk. "So you came here to remember why this matters." Chun turned back to his workbench and picked up another weapon, a simple pistol that had seen much use. This Hulk holds the records of everyone who passed through Vax Transport's facilities. 50,000 people sold into slavery over 5 years. Families torn apart. Children who never saw their parents again. Zixala watched him work. His movements were methodical, almost meditative. This was not the savage warrior she had expected to find. This was someone performing a quiet ritual. "The galaxy thinks you are a monster," she said. Chun smiled slightly, but there was no humor in it. "I know. It makes my work easier when criminals fear me. But you are not what they think you are." "No." He set down the pistol and looked at her again. "I am something worse." "Worse?" "A monster kills because it enjoys killing. A warrior kills to win battles. A criminal kills for profit." Chun's voice remained calm, conversational. "But I kill because I believe it is right. And there is no negotiating with that." Zixala felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the Hulk. "You think you are justified. I know I am justified. Every person I have freed from slavery justifies what I do. Every child who will grow up free because their parents were not kidnapped justifies what I do. Every family that remains together because I stopped the people who would have torn them apart justifies what I do. But the killing is necessary." Chun picked up another. tool and began working on a different weapon. Do you know what the survival rate is for people sold into slavery in this sector? 60% die within the first year. Children have even lower survival rates. The lucky ones are worked to death quickly. He showed her images on the display. Zixal looked away after the first few pictures. So I do not negotiate with slavers, Chung continued. I do not arrest them or fine them or relocate them. I end them, permanently, because as long as they exist, innocent people die. Other species do not think this way. We fight for territory or resources or survival. But you fight for principles. Yes. Chun finished with his weapon and set it aside. Most species evolve to protect their own group, their pack, their hive, their family. Humans evolve differently. We protect strangers. We sacrifice ourselves for people we have never met. We will die for abstract concepts like freedom and justice. Zixala thought about Kepler Station. That is why you would not surrender. Those researchers meant nothing to you personally, but you were willing to die for them. Not willing, determined. There is a difference. Chun stood up and began packing his tools. A soldier might be willing to die for his cause, but hopes to survive. A human with a righteous purpose has already accepted death as the price of doing what is right. That is what the galaxy fears about humans. Not your strength or your weapons or your ships. Your certainty, yes. Chung closed his equipment case and picked up his rifle. Other species can be reasoned with, bribed, threatened, or convinced to change sides. But a human who believes they are fighting for justice, there is no stopping them except death. And sometimes not even that. Zixala watched him prepare to leave. Where will you go now? To finish what I started. Corvin Industries has a board meeting tomorrow on their private station. All 3 of the former VAX transport executives will be there, along with their current partners. 27 people who have built their wealth on the suffering of others. You are going to kill 27 people by yourself? Chun slung his rifle across his shoulder. If necessary. But I am hoping they will see reason and simply surrender. And if they do not, then I will do what humans do when innocent people are in danger. I will remove the threat. As they walked back through the dark corridors of the Hulk, Zixala tried to understand what she had learned. Marcus Chen was not insane. He was not driven by rage or hatred. He was simply a human who had decided that slavery was wrong and needed to be stopped. That clarity of purpose, that absolute moral certainty, was more terrifying than any weapon. Commander, Chun said as they reached the airlock. You came here to study me so you could stop me. Yes. And now? Zixal looked at the calm, determined human standing before her. She thought about the files she had read. The thousands of people who had been freed because of his actions. The slave operations that had been destroyed. The families that were still together because he had stopped the people who would have torn them apart. Now I understand why the galaxy fears humans, she said quietly. And do you still plan to stop me? Zixala was quiet for a long moment. Then she unsealed her helmet and looked Marcus Chun directly in the eyes. No, she said, but I think I would like to help. For the first time since she had met him, Marcus Chun smiled. And this time, there was warmth in it. Then let me tell you about Corvin Industries. The Corvin Industries station hung in space like a metal flower, its 5 arms spreading out from a central hub. It looked beautiful and peaceful from the outside. Inside, Commander Zixala knew were 27 of the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. Remember, Marcus Chen said over the communication link, our priority is the prisoners being held in Section C. Everything else is secondary. Zixala checked her weapons one final time. She had left her crew behind and come alone, just as Chen had suggested. This was not a military operation. It was a rescue mission. How many prisoners? she asked. 234, according to my intelligence. Mostly human families from the outer colonies, but also some Nexari and Verlins. They are being prepared for transport to the slave markets on Keth Prime. Zixala had seen the files Chun showed her. Pictures of children locked in metal cages. Families separated and branded like animals. The images made her sick. The security forces? Minimal. The executives rely on secrecy, not strength. Maybe 20 guards total. They are not expecting trouble. Chun's ship was a small, unremarkable freighter that looked like thousands of others in the galaxy. It approached the station on a standard docking vector, transmitting false credentials that identified it as a supply vessel. Docking Bay 7 came the voice from station control. Welcome to Corvin Industries. As they docked, Zixala felt nervous energy building in her chest. She had fought in dozens of battles, but this felt different. This time, she was fighting for something instead of against someone. Remember, Chun said as they prepared to board the station, we are delivery workers bringing medical supplies. Stay calm, act normal, and follow my lead. The docking bay was quiet. Two bored-looking guards waved them through without checking their cargo. Chun had been right. The criminals felt safe here in their hidden station. They made their way through corridors lined with false, corporate logos and meaningless motivational posters. Everyone they passed wore business suits and carried datapads. It looked like any legitimate company headquarters, but Zixala could smell fear beneath the professional atmosphere. The workers moved quickly and avoided eye contact. The guards were too alert for a simple corporate facility. And there were too many locked doors for a normal business. The board meeting is on level 5, Chun said quietly as they walked. The prisoners are being held 3 levels down. We split up here. I should go to the board meeting with you. No, I can handle 27 executives in suits. But if something goes wrong and they try to kill the prisoners, you are the only one who can stop them. Chun handed her a device that looked like a medical scanner. This will override the electronic locks on the prison cells. Get the people out and to the escape pods in Section D. I will join you when I finish with the board. Zixala wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Chun moved through the station like he had planned this for months. Every turn, every corridor, every security checkpoint. He knew them all. How long? She asked. Give me 30 minutes. If I am not back by then, leave without me. They separated at a maintenance shaft that led to the lower levels. As Zixala climbed down through the dark tunnels, she could hear sounds from below, crying, voices speaking in different languages. The sound of metal doors clanging shut. The prison level was exactly what she had expected and worse than she had imagined. Long corridors lined with metal cages barely large enough to hold one person. The air was hot and stale. Emergency lights cast everything in a sick red glow, and the prisoners, humans mostly but also members of other species, families huddled together in spaces too small for them, children who stared at her with empty eyes, adults who had given up hope of rescue. Zixala felt rage building in her chest. These were not criminals or enemies. They were innocent people whose only crime was being in the wrong place. When slavers found them, she activated Chun's device and began opening cell doors. The electronic locks disengaged with soft clicks. At first, the prisoners cowered away from her, afraid this was some kind of trick. I am here to help, she said in Galactic Standard. We are getting you out of here. A human woman with torn clothes and bruises on her face stepped forward. Who are you? Commander Zixala, Confederacy Fleet. But today I'm just someone who thinks you deserve to be free. Word spread quickly through the prison level. Within minutes, all 234 prisoners were free of their cages. But they were still trapped on a space station controlled by their captors. Follow me, Zixala said. Stay quiet and stay together. Leading them through the station was like herding children. Many of the prisoners were weak from poor food and cramped conditions. Some were injured. Parents carried young children who were too scared to walk. They made it to Section D without being discovered. The escape pods were there, just as Chun had promised. Small ships designed to carry people away from the station in case of emergency. Can you fly these? Asked the human woman. Basic autopilot, Zixala replied, checking the controls. Set a course for the nearest inhabited system, and they will take you to safety automatically. She began loading people into the escape pods. Families stayed together. Adults helped children who had been separated from their parents. Even in their fear and weakness, they took care of each other. That was when the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A voice echoed from speakers in the walls. Security alert. Unauthorized personnel on level 5. All guards to the executive section immediately. Zixala checked the time. 28 minutes had passed since she separated from Chun. Get in the pods, she told the prisoners. Launch now. What about you? Asked the human woman. I have to go back for someone. As the escape pods launched into space, Zixala ran back through the station toward level 5. The corridors were chaos now. Guards ran past her without giving her a second look. She was just another person in a business suit trying to get away from danger. She reached the executive level to find bodies scattered in the hallway. Not dead, unconscious. Chen had used stun weapons to disable the guards without killing them. Through an open doorway, she could see into the boardroom. Marcus Chun stood at one end of a long conference table. At the other end, 27 men and women in expensive clothes huddled together in fear. These were the people who had built their fortunes on human misery. The ones who ordered families torn apart and children sold like property. The decision is simple, Chun was saying in that same calm voice she remembered from their first meeting. You can surrender yourselves to galactic law enforcement, or you can resist. But either way, your slave operations end today. One of the executives, a well-dressed Thrakari with gold jewelry, stepped forward. You are just one human. We have security forces throughout this station. Your security forces are all unconscious. Your prisoners have been freed. Your financial accounts have been frozen and transferred to refugee assistance programs. Your slave transport ships have been disabled. You have nothing left except the choice I am offering you. The Thrakari snarled and pulled out a concealed weapon. Several other executives did the same. That was when Zixala understood the real difference between humans and other species. Chun could have killed them all in the first few seconds. She had seen him fight at Kepler Station. She knew what he was capable of. But even now, facing armed criminals who had caused so much suffering, he still tried to give them a chance to surrender. The executives opened fire. Chun moved like liquid shadow, rolling behind the conference table as energy blasts scorched the air where he had been standing. But instead of returning fire immediately, he called out one more time. Last chance. Surrender now, and you live. The answer was more gunfire. What happened next lasted only minutes, but Zixala knew she would remember every second for the rest of her life. Chun did not fight like a soldier trying to win a battle. He fought like a force of nature trying to restore balance to the universe. When it was over, 27 of the galaxy's most successful slave traders were either unconscious or dead. Marcus Chun stood among them with new wounds bleeding through his clothing, but his eyes were still calm. Did the prisoners get away? He asked. All of them. Good. Chun swayed slightly, and Zixala realized he was hurt worse than she had thought. Then it was worth it, as they made their way back to their ship. Moving through corridors now filled with unconscious guards and disabled security systems, Zixala finally understood what the old Nexari trader had meant in the cantina. Marcus Chen was not the monster the galaxy feared. He was something much more dangerous than that. He was proof that some species would sacrifice anything, their comfort, their safety, their lives, for people they did not even know. Other species fought for logical reasons: territory, resources, survival, dominance. But humans fought for justice. And when they did, they became unstoppable. 3 weeks later, Commander Zixala sat in Admiral Chorus' office once again. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the Corvin Industries raid. The station had been seized by galactic law enforcement. The surviving executives were in prison. The slave trade in the entire sector had collapsed overnight. Your report says that Marcus Chung was killed in the raid, Admiral Korath said carefully. Yes, sir. He died protecting the prisoners during their escape.